YouTube, what's good? I wasn't planning on doing a blog today for my channel. I was actually trying to get my podcast shit situated so I could do another episode this week. Actually, I was going to do two episodes, um, um, a bonus episode, because I had wanted to touch on something that came up in last week's episode, and then I was going to do a second one later in the week um, with the homie Adam from last week. But I was on Facebook and I saw one of his Facebook lives. He was currently going in on basically talking about relationships and how every man cheats, and I I, I saw it and I kind of wanted to touch base again because I remember early on in my YouTube channel, I touched on cheating and I did a blog about how um, cheating is a very broad term, and it's really defined by the person in the relationship who feels as if they're being cheated on. And when you look at it from the perspective of cheating being so broad and it really being defined, I mean, you guys can go back and look at the previous blog. It's called "What is Cheating and How is it Defined?" And basically, how I broke it down was cheating is such a broad term that it really can't be defined by anybody other than the person who feels as though they're being cheated on in that relationship. And so that, the more I thought about it, and as I was watching Adam's Facebook Live and seeing some of the questions that were going back and forth and some of the statements that people were making, I started thinking, and I was like, I should do an update to my blog, because the more I think about it, I'm not going to say, look, I'm the biggest advocate for men. I feel like we as a gender group are stereotyped far more than women are. And even though women claim to be the victim of double standards when it comes to men and women as a gender group, in reality, I think men are far more um, subject to certain types of double standards, because the narrative is always, why do men cheat, and why are men dogs, and why do men do this, and why do men do that. And of course, we all know, I mean, you cannot deny it, women do cheat, but we always, it's always more of a subconscious thing. We always seem to be more cognizant of the fact that men do it, as if it's just something that men exclusively have the fucking rights to. But that's not even the purpose of the blog. What I really wanted to do was go back and touch on what I had touched on before when I was talking about cheating and how it's really defined by the person that you're with, which is still true. I stand behind my statement. But the more I get into exactly what it is that people classify as cheating, when you look at it from that broad spectrum, nobody is really ever going to be immune to being charged with cheating, because it's too broad and it can incorporate so many different things. If you're going to start talking about cheating as a mental transgression, as well as a physical, as well as an emotional, and even when you're getting down to some people feeling like you having thoughts, conscious thoughts about another person while you're in a relationship with someone, and they consider that to be cheating, you can't really say they're wrong. But at the same time, and this is what I was going back and forth on with my boy Adam in his Facebook Live, um, at the same time, how can you fault someone for thoughts? I mean, thoughts, it's human nature. You really don't have control from one minute to the next what thoughts pop into your head. You can control your actions, but I mean, if we're technically speaking, once you have a thought, even if that thought started in your subconscious, once you have a thought, you become cognizant of that thought. And if you keep entertaining that thought, where that thought turns into an idea, which turns into a fantasy, which turns into, at some point, you acting out that fantasy or that idea, then I guess you could say, then yes, cheating can take place on a mental level. Um, Here's a problem, though. I've always advocated for men in a sense where I've always said all men don't cheat. And I still can't say that everybody cheats. And I'm definitely not prepared to say that all men cheat, as long as women are going to be on their side of that premise and thinking that men cheat predominantly more than women, because I'm not prepared to accept that premise. I mean, I'm just not. I've seen too much. I've experienced too much. I'm not prepared to accept the premise that men cheat more than women. What I will say though, when it comes to men, and if we're holding to the idea, to the premise that cheating is a broad term and it's best defined by the person who feels it's being done to them, and if it's inclusive even of mental thoughts, then I will have to say that I will not be mad at the argument that someone makes that all men cheat. And here's why I say that. And I think people need to start categorizing and compartmentalizing different subject matter.